Okay, so today we are diving into a field that really powers our world, literally. Liquid fuel engineering.
Yeah.
What comes to mind when you hear that? Like, be honest.
I bet you're picturing someone on an oil rig, right? Hard hat, covered in grease.
Yeah, kinda. It's a little cliche, but that's the image, right? So, to get the real story, we're going deep with some excerpts from RoleCatcher. They're kind of the career experts.
Yeah, they are.
So, let's ditch the stereotypes. What does this field actually look like? Paint us a picture.
Okay, so it's broader than just oil and gas, which most people don't realize.
Yeah.
Anything that can be extracted, turned into liquid, and then used for energy, that's where a liquid fuel engineer comes in.
Okay, that's already way more interesting than I thought. So we're talking like what, besides the obvious?
Besides your petroleum, think biofuels, alcohols, even stuff that we haven't even, fully tapped into yet. It's the future of how we power things.
So it's not all just like dinosaurs and fossil fuel.
Exactly. It's way more dynamic than people think.
Okay, so less about dinosaurs, more about innovation. But let's be real, what's a day in the life actually like?
Honestly, that's what I love about it. There is no typical day.
Yeah,
You'd be out in the field, looking at geological surveys, figuring out where to even drill.
okay.
Or you're back in the lab, like knee-deep in the tech. You know about fracking.
Fracking, yeah. Isn't that when they inject, what is it, high pressure fluid to get the oil and gas out?
Yeah, so a liquid fuel engineer might be designing that process, making sure it's as efficient as possible.
Right, and they're probably thinking about the environmental impact too, right? Because fracking can be kind of controversial.
Huge part of the job. It's not just about getting the fuel, it's doing it responsibly. Minimizing water use, dealing with wastewater, making sure nothing leaks. That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, no kidding. Rollcatcher mentioned that long hours, high stakes, but also high reward, salary-wise.
Oh, absolutely. This isn't a job, it's a career. You're making a real impact on how the world works. You can move up, specialize. There's always something new to learn.
Okay, so let's say someone is listening and they're like, sign me up. Where do I start? What's step one on the road to becoming a liquid fuel engineer?
Well, you gotta love science and math, that's for sure. It all starts with a solid STEM foundation.
Right, makes sense. But like, we talk in specific degrees here.
Absolutely. So you've got your petroleum engineering, that's classic. Chemical engineering is huge too. And then geology, that's a surprisingly good fit because you're dealing with the earth, understanding formations, that kind of thing.
Huh. I never would have thought of geology, but it makes total sense.
Yeah. And even environmental science.
Yeah.
Because like we were talking about, sustainability is a huge deal in this field now.
Okay, so you've got your degree, maybe did some internships. What else? This field seems really competitive. How do you stand out?
It's not just about like knowing the technical stuff anymore. Don't get me wrong, that's important. But companies are looking for something more.
Okay, like what?
Well, think about it. They want people who get the big picture. The science is essential, but you also got to understand the environmental impact of what you're doing.
So you got to be able to balance the need for energy with protecting the planet.
Exactly. It's a delicate dance, but it's where the industry's headed.
Rollcatcher also talked a lot about certifications, the PE license specifically.
The professional engineer license, yeah, that's big.
Like, is that essential?
Pretty much. I mean, it shows you're serious, that you meet industry standards.
Yeah.
Like you're not just winging it. You know what you're doing.
So it's a way to build trust and credibility.
Exactly. And there are other ones too, depending on what you want to specialize in. The Society of Petroleum Engineers, they've got a bunch.
They do, yeah. So it's not like you ever stop learning in this field.
Never. Things are changing constantly, new technologies, new challenges. You got to stay on top of it.
So we've talked about what liquid fuel engineers do, how they get there. But what about the future? I mean, everyone's talking about renewable energy now.
Yeah, that's the big question, right? Like, what happens to this whole field as we move away from oil and gas? It's something every liquid fuel engineer is thinking about, for sure.
So are we looking at like the end of an industry?
I wouldn't go that far. Here's the thing. Even if we switch to, like, wind and solar tomorrow, which we won't, we'll still need oil and gas for a while. But, like, phasing it out takes time.
That makes sense. But long term, where do they fit in if everything's solar powered or whatever?
So this is where it gets interesting. The skill set of a liquid fuel engineer, it's surprisingly adaptable.
Really?
Oh, yeah. You're talking about people who solve complex problems, who understand energy systems, who can innovate. That's valuable no matter what the fuel source is.
So like their skills could transfer over to renewables.
Exactly. Think about geothermal energy, right?
Yeah.
You're still drilling, you're dealing with fluids, you're optimizing production.
It's true, I didn't even think of that.
And biofuels, That's another huge area. Like algae-based fuels, that's the future,
Oh,
potentially.
algae. That's a thing.
Oh, yeah. The challenge with algae is scaling it up, making it commercially viable. Who do you think does that? Liquid fuel engineers. They'll be the ones designing those systems, figuring out how to make it work on a global scale.
Wow. So it's not about the end, it's about like evolving.
Exactly. The fuel might change, the tech will definitely advance, but those core skills,
Yeah.
the innovation, the problem solving, that's always going to be in demand.
This has been eye-opening, I gotta say. We've gone from oil rigs to like algae farms. Who knew? Liquid fuel engineering, it's way more dynamic than it gets credit for.
For sure.
And on that note, we'll leave everyone with this. If you could build the perfect energy future, what would it look like? What's your role in making it happen? That's something to think about. Until next time, happy diving.